Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here with the next Braille discussion video. This is session 53, which makes this video number 54. We're getting really close to the end of the volume 1 book. There's 56 sessions. So close. Here we go. Dawn's first question of session 53. I would like to know the instrument's condition and ask 2 questions of her. She would like to know if she can do 1 exercise of 1 hour a day, and if the pain she feels prior to a session is the pain from she feels prior to a session due to an Orion attack. Remember, the instrument is Carla. The instrument's condition is previously stated. They always say that. The answer to the question of exercise: now that the intensive period is over, this instrument may, if it chooses, exercise 1 period rather than 2. In scanning this instrument's physical complex distortions, we find the current period of exercise at the limit of the instrument's we find the current period of exercise at the limit of this instrument's strength. This is well in the long run due to an cumulative building up of the vital energies. In the short run, it is wearying to this entity. Thus, we suggest the entity be aware of our previous oh goodness, what is this word? I'm not going to say it right. I know what it is, but my brain just can't even say it. Admonitions? That's not right. Regarding other aids to appropriate bodily distortions. In answer to the second query, we may say that the physical complex difficulties prior to contact with our social memory complex are due to the action of the subconscious will of the instrument. This will is extremely strong and requires the mind-body-spirit complex to reserve all available physical and vital energies for the contact. Thus, the discomforts are experienced due to the dramatic distortion towards physical weakness while this energy is diverted. This entity is also under physical attack, and this intensifies pre-existing conditions and is responsible for the cramping and dizziness as well as mind complex distortions. Notice I wrote, ugh. Poor Carla. So she's already weak. She's already a mess. She's had all this physical attack with the bad acid from the Orion group. She's been trying to get herself back together, and she's still having problems, and they're still trying to attack her. Next question. I would like to know if somebody may attend one of these sessions in the very near future. They took the name out. The mind-body-spirit complex, somebody, name, belongs with this group in the spirit and is welcome. You may request that special meditative periods be set aside until the entity sits with this working. We might suggest that a photograph of the one known as James Allen be sent to this entity with his writing upon it indicating love and light. This, held while meditating, will bring the entity into peaceful harmony with each of you so that there be no extraneous waste of energy while greetings are exchanged between 2 entities, both of whom have a distortion towards solitude and shyness, as you call it. The same might be done with a photograph of the entity name for one known as James Allen. So here's the footnote. James Allen's Jim. So I guess they want somebody to come in and join their sessions, but they're both shy, and they both like their solitude, Jim and this other person. So they need to look at each other's pictures and writings so that they can get used to each other energetically. I wonder who it was. During my trip to Lamaray, certain things became apparent to me with respect to disseminating the first book of the Law of One to those who have had experiences with UFOs and other wanderers. And I will have to ask some questions now that I may include in this book. In Book 1, to eliminate a misunderstanding that I am perceiving as a possibility in Book 1. Therefore, these questions, although for the most part transient, are aimed at eliminating certain distortions of understanding with respect to the material in Book 1. I hope that I am making a correct approach here. You may not be able to answer some, but that's all right. We'll just go on to some others if you can't answer the ones I ask. So before we go any further, here's another footnote. Don includes the information from 53.6 through 17 in session 26 in the original publication to give readers a broader view of the Close Encounters. These two sessions are originally divided into books 1 and 3, but they are now contained in the same volume. A footnote has simply been added to session 26, directing readers to this session in order to address Don's concern about creating a wrong impression regarding the phenomenon. So remember, these books originally were like 4 books, and they were very much edited, not in order. A lot of stuff was taken out, and this is the re-listening edition that came out in the early 2000s. Was it the early 2000s? I don't remember. It was in the 2000s. That puts it all together in the right order without anything being taken out. Okay. First, I will ask if you could tell me the affiliation of the entities that contacted Betty Anderson. So I looked that up. So in 1967, it was a UFO encounter with aliens. They didn't remember until 1977 during hypnosis. They said they were helpful aliens that, oh, I can't read my own handwriting. 1967 encounter, UFO aliens didn't remember until 1977 during a hypnosis. Helpful aliens that something, prober, and an encounter with God. I don't know what that means. I don't know what even that says. It's my own handwriting, and I can't read it. But anyway, that's who the Betty Anderson person is. Anderson. Don wants to know, who were the entities that contacted Betty? Let's go see. This query is marginal. We will make the concession toward information with some loss of polarity due to free will being abridged. We request that questions of this nature be kept to a minimum. Don. The entities of this and some other vividly remembered cases are those who, feeling the need to plant Confederation imagery in some way as not to abrogate free will, use the symbols of death, resurrection, love, and peace as means of creating, upon the thought level, the time-space illusion of a systematic train of events, which give the message of love and hope. This type of contact is chosen by careful consideration of Confederation members which are contacting an entity of like home vibration. So like their own vibration from their own place, if you will. This project then goes before the Council of Saturn and, if approved, is completed. The characteristics of this type of contact include the non-painful nature of thoughts experienced and the message content which speaks not of doom but of new dawning age. So essentially, Ron I just put Ra and Dawn together. They're the power couple. Ron. Ra is saying that their entities that contacted Betty were from the Confederation, which, remember, the Confederation is supposed to be the good guys. Council of Saturn is like a conglomeration of different entities from different places who are trying to help us. Probably maybe other things, I don't know. But they're focused and centered around our planet in our solar system of Saturn. And they use that as like the home base of which to try to protect us and help us and get us on the right track. So Ra is saying that the entities that contacted Betty were from this Confederation. the Confederation Council of Saturn approved this contact, and they're really just trying to implant some thoughts and feelings that have to do with love, to try to get things going in the right direction. Not doom and gloom, but a new dawning age. Interesting. Let's keep going. It is not necessary that I include the information that you just gave in the book to accomplish my purpose. In order to save your polarity, shall I say, I can keep this as private material if you wish. Do you wish for me to keep it unpublished? That which we offer you is freely given and subject only to discretion. Okay. I thought you would say that. In that case, can you tell me anything about the blue book mentioned by Betty Anderson in that case? So she was given a book by aliens. So we're not talking about Project Blue Book here. We're talking about an actual book that the aliens gave her. Ra says no. No, you can't know about the book. Can you tell me of various techniques used by the service to others or positively oriented Confederation contacts with people of this planet, the various forms of or techniques of them making contact? We could. Here's one of those times where Ra's being facetious. We could tell you. Crickets, would you please do this? The most effective mode of contact is that which you experience at this space-time. The infringement upon free will is greatly undesired. Therefore, those entities which are wanderers upon your plane of illusion will be the only subjects for the thought projections which make up the so-called close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. We could stop there, but let's keep going. Could you give me an example of one of these meetings between a wanderer and a social memory complex as to what the wanderer would experience? One such example is of which you are familiar is that of the one known as Morris. The footnote is, this refers to case number 1 in Secrets of the UFO by Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert. So, a UFO contactee case. In this case, the previous contact which other entities in this entity's circle of friends experienced was negatively oriented. However, you will recall that the entity, Morris, was impervious to this contact and could not see with the physical optical apparatus this contact. So negative entities try to contact Morris, but he literally couldn't see them. He wasn't affected by it. However, the inner voice alerted the one known as Morris to go by itself to another place, and there an entity with the thought form, shape, and appearance of the other contact appeared and gazed at this entity, thus awakening in it the desire to seek truth of this occurrence and of experiences of its incarnation in general. The feeling of being awakened or activated is the goal of this type of contact. The duration and imagery used varies depending upon the subconscious expectations of the wanderer which is experiencing this opportunity for activation. Okay, let's stop there. So Ra is saying here, because you know Don's specifically asking about UFO stuff and alien contact. Like that's what he's mostly interested in, because he thinks that that's what's going to get a book published about this information. That's why he's asking about all the alien stuff. So Ra's saying the most effective contact, they can't, and they shouldn't, and they try not to impose upon the free will of people, but they can do it to wanderers because wanderers already know stuff. So wanderers upon your plane of illusion would be the only subjects for the thought projections which make up close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. This is really interesting because if you are part of our Team Weird over on Twitch, over the past few months, we've been being contacted by the aliens known as the Pleiadians through one of our viewers and one of my lovely moderators, Void Cat Loose. Okay, so yeah, all right, okay, but it's being publicly broadcasted. You know? So if what Ra is saying is true, the information is only coming to people who are wanderers, which would suggest that perhaps Void Cat Loose is said wanderer, right? But other people are watching it and participating and feeling part of this, feeling part of the experience, even though the messages aren't coming through directly, specifically for them. They always give information for everybody. So what does that mean? What does it mean? I mean, we're not being like taken aboard a ship or like seeing what they look like physically with our eyes. It's through telepathic communication, you know? So, I don't know. It's weird. Let's keep reading. In a close encounter by a Confederation type of craft, I assume that this close encounter is with a thought form type of craft. Do wanderers within the past few years have close encounters with landed thought form type of craft? This has occurred, although it is much less common than the Orion type of so-called close encounter. We may note that in a universe of unending unity, the concept of a close encounter is humorous. Or are not all encounters of a nature of self with self. Therefore, how can any encounter be less than very, very close? Oh, I love that. I love it. Because we keep thinking of like, you know, if there are aliens out there, that they're not like us, and they're different, and they're strange, and they're, you know, other. But the wonderful thing about all of this information is that what Ra just said is that we're not. That a close encounter is humorous because we're all the same thing. We're all the same. So how can it be an other if it's just an other self? Things to think about. Talking about this type of encounter of self to self, do any wanderers of a positive polarization ever encounter a so-called close encounter with the Orion or negatively oriented polarization? This is correct. But then Dawn interrupts. Why does this occur? When it occurs, it is quite rare and occurs either due to the Orion entity's lack of perception of the depth of positivity to be encountered or due to the Orion's entity's desire to attempt to remove this positivity from the plane of existence. Orion tactics normally are those which choose the simple distortions of mind which indicate less mental and spiritual complex activity. I have become aware of a very large variation in contact with individuals. The Confederation, I am assuming, uses a form of contact to awaken wanderers, and could you give me a general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they are contacting? The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understanding subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Start it. Many such occur in sleep. Others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, you are aware. So this is kind of what I was getting at earlier. Like, Don was specifically asking about UFO stuff and alien stuff, but there's a lot of other ways that wanderers get awakened. Because really it just has to be some sort of experience that has meaning for the wanderer to spark either a desire to start looking or sparks something that makes them remember. Very, very interesting. What about the physical examination syndrome? How does that relate to wanderers and to the Confederation and Orion contacts? The subconscious expectations of entities cause the nature and detail of thought form experience offered by Confederation thought form entities. Thus, if a wanderer expects a physical examination, it will perforce be experienced with a little distortion towards alarm or discomfort, as is allowable by the nature of the expectations of the subconscious distortions of the wanderer. So the person being abducted by the aliens has heard so many stories about having a physical examination that because they expect it, that's what happens. Sounds like the law of attraction, doesn't it? Okay, are both those who are taken on Confederation and Orion craft then experiencing a seeming physical examination? Your query indicates incorrect thinking. The Orion group uses the physical examinations as a means of terrifying the individual and causing it to feel the feelings of an advanced second density being such as a laboratory animal. Yes. The sexual experience of some are a subtype of this experience. The intent is to demonstrate the control of the Orion entities over the Terran inhabitant, us. The thought form experiences are subjective, for the most part, do not occur in this density. So yeah, of course the Orion group's going to use it to terrify and cause a feeling of they have control over me. That's what the whole purpose of them is. Subjection, servitude, slavery, control, and power. So the Confederation entities aren't doing stuff like that. But if the Confederation experience has something like that happen, it's because the person expected it to be happening. But I don't think that they would be feeling fear, being terrified, etc. Which means, unfortunately, a lot of the alien abductee experiences that have been publicized, and I think that this has actually come up previously in a session a long time ago. Unfortunately, a lot of the alien abductee stories that come out, that become publicized and talked about and TV shows made about and movies made about, are the terrifying ones. And they are the Orion ones, and that's doing exactly what the Orion group wants them to do. It's causing a mass panic attack about aliens and what aliens are coming here to do. And really that's like, remember the Orion group is like a tiny little fraction of like all of the other kinds of aliens out there that are actually trying to be helpful and are of the Law of One and are part of the Confederation or other entities out there. The Orion group is a tiny, tiny little fraction that just happened to get a foothold in on us humans. And that's another way that they're making us scared, is by doing these abductions, scaring the crap out of people, and then having the people go and share it with everybody so they think that all aliens are like this, and it's not true. Let's keep reading. Then both Confederation and Orion contacts are being made, and close encounters are of a dual nature as I understand it. They can either be of the Confederation or Orion type of contact, correct? Correct. Although the preponderance of contacts is Orion oriented. Yuck. We have a large spectrum of entities on Earth with respect to harvestability, both positively oriented and negatively oriented. Would the Orion target in on the ends of the spectrum, both positive and negative oriented, for contact? This query is somewhat difficult to accurately answer, however we shall attempt to do so. The most typical approach to Orion entities is to choose what you might call the weaker-minded entity, that it might suggest a greater amount of Orion philosophy to be disseminated. Some few Orion entities are called by more highly polarized negative entities of your space-time nexus. In this case, they share information just as we are doing now. However, this is a risk for Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities then attempt to bid and order the Orion contact, just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. The resulting struggle for mastery, if lost, is damaging to the polarity of the Orion group. Similarly, a mistake Orion contact with highly polarized positive entities can wreak havoc with Orion troops unless these crusaders are able to deplore the entity mistakenly contacted. This occurrence is almost unheard of. Therefore, the Orion group prefers to make physical contact only with the weaker-minded entity. So in other words, if they accidentally contact a highly polarized person for positive, it can really mess up some stuff. But if they are contacting someone who's highly negative polarized, that entity, that person, might try to take over some of the control of the Orion group, which is also going to screw them up. So instead, they try to only contact weaker-minded entities who are going to be easy to manipulate. That makes sense. Then in general, I could say that if an individual has a close encounter with a UFO or any other type of experience this seems to be UFO related, he must look to the heart of the encounter and the effect upon him to determine whether it's Orion or Confederation contact, correct? Correct. If there is fear and doom, the contact was quite likely of a negative nature. If the result is hope, friendly feelings, and the awakening of a positive feeling of purpose toward purposeful service to others, the marks of Confederation contact are evident. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I did not wish to create the wrong impression with material that we are including in Book 1 and find it necessary to add some of this material. I know that it's transient, but it, I believe, is necessary for a full understanding or a correct approach to the material. And then he goes on and says, if you could tell me what or the major portion of Confederation entities look like. Ooh, good question, Dawn. The fourth density Confederation entity looks variously depending upon the derivation of the physical vehicle. So it just depends on what their physical body looked like, I guess. Do some of them look like us? Could they pass for Earth people? Those of this nature are most often fifth density. Interesting. I assume that the same answer could apply to the Orion group, correct? As far as fourth and fifth density goes? Correct. Can you tell me why so-and-so has so many silver flecks on her? This is infringement. No. The silver flecks. Silver flecks were brought up in the very beginning of this book. Could you tell me why I got sick during Carl Raskin's talk? Carl Raskin was an American philosopher and theologian. We scan your thoughts. They are correct, and therefore we do not infringe by confirming them. The space-time of your allotted speaking was drawing near, and you came upon Orion attack due to the great desire of some positively oriented entities to become aware of the law of one. This may be expected, especially when you are not in a group lending strength to each other. Frowny face. Can you comment on my and the instrument, if she approves, so-called ball of lightning experience as a child? So before we go any further, I want to stop here for a second. So Dawn is having some sort of experience where he's starting to become aware of the Law of One during a lecture by Carl Raski. And because he was starting to understand some of the Law of One just all on his own during this talk, the Orion group, somebody from the Orion group came and attacked him and made him feel sick because he didn't have strength from a group. Okay. All right, let's look at the footnote about this ball lightning here. Carla wrote, "When I was about 1 year old, I was sleeping in a cradle that was placed at some distance from the open window. There was a storm going on. Mom came in to close the window. She saw a ball of lightning come into the room and circle around the cradle 1.5 times and go out again. When I told the story to Don, he said he had the same thing happen to him when he was an infant. His mother didn't elaborate on it, so that's all he knew. You were being visited by your people to be wished well." That was the answer that Ra gives. So both of their moms saw a ball of light, what they explained as lightning, circle around them as babies. Now remember, Don, Carla, and Jim are all wanderers of some sort. They don't know exactly who's who and what's what from Ra, but they're all wanderers, which means that they're all entities from other places, from other densities, from other social memory complexes, perhaps. And the answer about the lightning was, you were being visited by your people to be wished well. It's beautiful. I apologize for asking so many transient questions during this session. I hope that we do not cause any problem for you, especially with respect to loss of polarity and that one question, but I felt it necessary to include some of this material so that those wanderers and other readers and others reading the first book of the Law of One would not get the wrong impression with respect to their experiences and context. Is there anything we can do to improve the contact of the, or aid the instrument? You know, they always ask if they can do something to help Carla. Please guard your alignments carefully. I think they're talking about the alignments of the appurtenances, the stuff, perhaps. Or maybe just how she's laying in the bed. Interesting session here. And I feel once again like I read this before, you know, clearly marked all the hell. But I read it at some time before. And here I am doing this video on a day after I felt like I was getting attacked by the Orion group last night on my Friday night stream. And a lot of the information in here is specifically about that. So divine timing, once again, all the way. I feel like I've been saying too many things out loud to people and doing too many positive things that the Orion group doesn't want people to know. So they're messing with me. I really do. Really do. Maybe that sounds crazy, but if you're watching this video, you're probably used to crazy. Anyway, if you'd like to join in on this conversation, put some comments below. We also have a Ra discussion board in the Discord server, which the Discord server link should be listed in the description box. If you'd like to join us on Twitch on Friday nights, I also have that, hopefully, in the description box. And if you enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. If this is the first Ra video you've seen, you should definitely watch them in order. All of this material builds on itself. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!